Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. The downfall of Les Wexner continues. Les Wexner has a foundation that is named after him, and now that foundation is distancing themselves from Les Wexner and the cloud of disgusting over his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. This comes after he has already had to step down from CEO at L Brands. He had to let go of Victoria's Secret, and the public downfall continues for Les Wexner. Now the real question is, when is he going to be subpoenaed and brought in and questioned under oath? Because that's what he deserves. Les Wexner played a huge role in Jeffrey Epstein's life. I mean, a gigantic, huge role. He most certainly was there every step of the way as Jeffrey Epstein was creating this disgusting criminal enterprise. And yet, somehow, Les Wexner has appeared to be bulletproof in the legacy media. Nobody has challenged him. Nobody has asked him the hard questions, and nobody has demanded that he answer those questions. Instead, we get more puff pieces about how Les Wexner is this great man who donated so much money, and he is just such a fantastic person. Meanwhile, we all know the score. Everybody who's been following this case understands that Les Wexner is literally none of those things, and that he's an absolute piece of garbage, in my opinion. This is the kind of man who needs to be brought down to earth. He needs to be subpoenaed, and he needs to understand that he is not above the law. This article today is from Haaretz.com. The author of the article is Allison Kaplan Summer. Headline, Where's Wexner? Foundation named after billionaire philanthropist distancing itself from its founder. As the clouds of suspicion around Leslie Wexner have darkened over the past year, the foundation he created over 30 years ago to cultivate leadership in the Jewish world and Israel appears to be divorcing itself from the billionaire businessman's name and persona. Well, look, we know what's happening here. We know that the house of cards is about to fall in on all of them. We know that Ghislaine Maxwell is most certainly singing a song. And we know that Les Wexner has much to fear and much to hide. His own foundation understands the stakes. They understand that Les Wexner is going to end up in even a bigger cloud of questions, a bigger cloud of Jeffrey Epstein fallout as time goes on and this trial starts to begin and new information comes out. Because Les Wexner is not just accused of being an enabler here, folks, okay? He is on the same rung as the other abusers, in my opinion. Same rung as Andrew, same rung as George Mitchell or Bill Richardson or Glenn Dubin. These are all the sick bastards that not only enabled Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise, but these are also men who have been credibly accused of partaking in the abuse. So, how Les Wexner has avoided big-time scrutiny in the legacy media, it's a joke to see the cover that they've given him. Nobody wants to ask those hard questions. Nobody's showing up at his house with a microphone and 15 cameras behind them. You have to ask yourself why. When there's all of this evidence out there, circumstantial and otherwise, that Les Wexner was a huge part of what was going on here. At the same time, though, there has been no evidence of structural change to provide greater transparency or reduce the billionaire philanthropist's ability to control the Wexner Foundation. So we have to ask ourselves, is it all for image purposes with this foundation? Him stepping back just so it looks like he's not involved? I don't put that past him, right? We know that people like him, they hang on to control forever. They never want to cede power in any capacity. And it must have broke him and killed him to have to cede power at L Brands and Victoria's Secret. So you know that he definitely does not want to cede power here, and you know that he is operating from behind the scenes, obviously, but this question even being asked in a paper like Haaretz.com bodes very, very poorly for Les Wexner and his future. For years, Wexner served as an inspirational example of someone who had single-handedly changed the world. In June 2019, the Wexner Foundation website proudly displayed one of several videos made over the years paying tribute to Wexner and urging participants in its 5 leadership programs to make an impact, change the world. In the words of Leslie H. Wexner, leaders lead, and this is a compilation of Mr. Wexner leading. His words are inspiring and his actions are motivating. Mr. Wexner has changed the world and provides the inspiration for you to do the same. If you mean by causing havoc and ruining people's lives as changing the world, then I guess you'd be right. Because at the end of the day, what legacy is this man leaving? A company like Victoria's Secret that is just infested with disgusting individuals from top to bottom that preyed on these young girls? That's the legacy he's leaving, in my opinion. The legacy of being credibly accused by Virginia. The legacy of being Jeffrey Epstein's first facilitator. Not the kind of legacy that you would want to leave, in my opinion. And I think it's important that we point out that this isn't a man who did great for the world. This is just another rich, disgusting, so-called elite who believes that the rest of us are worth less than shit. And to him, all that matters is the consolidation of power. So spare me the whole, Les Wexner changed the world. Not for the better, he didn't. For decades, Wexner's image and philosophy were central on the website. Photographs, extensive biographical information, and a rotating selection of quotes from Wexner, along with videos extolling his virtues. An examination of archived web pages shows that from 2002 until January 2020, images of Wexner were always displayed on the homepage, which even included a section titled, "What's Less Reading?" For a time, the site also offered a video of him lecturing at Harvard. I mean, could that be any more fitting? This disgusting idiot having a lecture at Harvard? Perfect. Talk about the belly of the beast. I'm sure he fit in just swimmingly at Harvard with all of those other disgusting assholes that are roaming that campus. All of these people that protected Jeffrey Epstein, these people that gave Jeffrey Epstein an office on their campus. This is where Les Wexner was having a speech, huh? Does it shock anybody that Les Wexner, Jeffrey Epstein's top boy, would also be tied to Harvard, would also be giving speeches at Harvard? It shouldn't. As of July 2020, the website's homepage is completely devoid of Wexner's image and his name. Aside from the name of the foundation itself, it's nowhere to be seen. All that remains of the family's once illustrious online presence is a single large photo of Wexner's wife, Abigail, and 2 mentions of his name in the opening description of the foundation's history and mission section. And this is how they tried to distance themselves. This is the beginning of the end for someone like Wexner. Once this distancing begins, and with Maxwell getting arrested, it's going to start at a quicker clip, in my opinion. This is how the downfall starts. We saw it happen a little bit after Epstein's arrest the second time, with him stepping down, all of the scrutiny on him. But now, this is going to be the final nail in the coffin. The arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell will lead to the complete and utter disgrace of Les Wexner. And boy, I cannot wait for the day. Lila Corwin Berman, a professor of Jewish history at Temple University and a previous recipient of a Wexner Graduate Fellowship, said she interpreted the changes as an effort to decenter Les Wexner from the Wexner Foundation to focus more on Abigail and the mission of the foundation. Well, I got bad news for you there, Mrs. Berman. Abigail Wexner is no better than her husband. What occurred on their property in New Albany with Maria Farmer is unseemly and disgusting. And the fact that the Wexners have never had to answer for it really, really bothers me. But the time is coming. You see, all of their smokescreens, all of their defenses, all of their little backup plans are all now being ferreted out. And with Ghislaine Maxwell in the clutches of the federal government singing a song, I am sure, you would have to think that the Wexners are in a bad state of affairs right now, because Ghislaine Maxwell most certainly knows the score. She knows the relationship and how deep it ran between Jeffrey Epstein and Les Wexner. And I am sure that Ghislaine Maxwell and Les Wexner were also relatively close. So, does it shock anybody that they're backing away from Wexner here, even though it's his own foundation? It shouldn't, because the time is coming for all of these people to answer questions. In a response to a question from Haaretz about Wexner's apparent disappearance from the Foundation website, a spokesperson replied, "Our website is being redesigned and reconfigured. Current content is temporary and should not be misconstrued as any statement about our relationship with and pride in our founder." Well, the proof is in the pudding. So the way your website is set up is going to be a telling sign. So if you don't have Wexner prominently displayed all over the website anymore the way you used to, it's obvious that you're trying to distance yourself from him. Severing ties with Epstein. The issue of whether Wexner, who has invested hundreds of millions of dollars and decades of time and energy to the enterprise, should reduce his role in its operations in the wake of the scandal surrounding Jeffrey Epstein has never been directly addressed by the Foundation. Of course it hasn't. They're scared of Wexner. They don't want to rock that boat. They don't want to take a trip down that street. So instead, they'll just ignore it, like Wexner wasn't a huge part of what happened with Jeffrey Epstein. Like Wexner isn't being credibly accused by Virginia Roberts. Like all these other so-called elites, they will try and ignore the problem until it goes away. Just like Ghislaine Maxwell was trying to do. She was trying to litigate in court and drag her feet so that she would never have to face discovery. Well, that shit caught up to her, and eventually, Wexner's nonsense is going to catch up to him. Epstein, Wexner's former business associate and a past trustee of the foundation, died in prison in August 2019 after being charged with sex trafficking and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking involving girls as young as 14. In 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty to procuring an underage girl for prostitution and soliciting a prostitute and spent a year in prison under unusually lenient conditions, the result of a generous plea deal with the Florida State prosecution. And again, an underage girl for prostitution, it's just, how's that even possible? How can an underage girl consent to be a prostitute? Stupid ass law, stupid ass ruling, stupid ass people. There has never been evidence that Wexner was in any way directly complicit in enabling Epstein's crimes. No evidence, huh? I mean, what can you expect from Haaretz? But let's be real. There is plenty of evidence that Wexner helped facilitate Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. At the very least, giving him power of the purse helped facilitate the crimes. What about the girls that were abused by using the false pretense of them getting jobs at Victoria's Secret? That has nothing to do with Wexner, huh? He has no responsibility for anything, huh? Wrong. Wexner must answer for his role in Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise. However, at least one of Epstein's accusers told the Washington Post she was repeatedly molested in a house on the Wexner estate in New Albany, Ohio, 1996, and quoted Epstein as saying, "Les loves me. He'll let me do anything." And that shouldn't shock anybody, right? Because we've heard the story from Maria herself. She's told the story numerous times. And we know how close Wexner was to Epstein. We know all of the rumors. We know that many people have said that Wexner was a bit in love with Epstein. We know that there was not much that Wexner would not do for Jeffrey Epstein. In a statement issued in July 2019 after Epstein faced the more serious sex trafficking charges, Wexner told the world he had severed all ties with Mr. Epstein nearly 12 years ago and would not have continued to work with any individual capable of such egregious, sickening behavior as has been reported about him. And you notice it's telling right here in this paragraph. In a statement issued in July 2019 after Epstein faced the more serious sex trafficking charges. Oh, when there were more serious, Wexner decided to get rid of stop the relationship with Epstein. The more serious charges. So soliciting an underage girl as a prostitute isn't serious enough for you, dumbass? Who do they think is buying this line of bullshit? Certainly not me. I certainly don't believe one word that this idiot Les Wexner puts out into the air. In my opinion, Les Wexner was a crucial member of the leadership structure of Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise, and he should be treated as such. Wexner regretted that he ever crossed paths with Epstein, the statement concluded. When Mr. Epstein was my personal money manager, he was involved in many aspects of my financial life. But let me assure you that I was never aware of the illegal activity charged in the indictment. Oh, well, that's cool. So, you assured us, Mr. Wexner, and that is plenty for us to go on. You have such a great reputation of being an honorable man, just like Prince Andrew, that we'll stop all investigations and all research into your behavior because you said so. You dumbass, you epic moron, you disgusting piece of human excrement. Les Wexner, protected by the media, loved by many, hated by the rest of us. This February, the Wexner Foundation released a report containing the conclusions of what it called an independent review by a Columbus-based law firm, Keegler, Brown, Hill, and Ritter Company. The review, commissioned by the foundation itself, scrutinized relevant documents and interviewed staff and trustees, including Leslie and Abigail Wexner. Well, there you guys go again. We had an internal investigation. Nobody else needs to be involved. We'll hire the law firm. These people, they're independent. Yeah, okay. So, because they did this internal review, they think that that's it. That's the end of it as far as they're concerned. Well, I have some bad news for you. We don't trust your stupid internal review. We don't trust the law company you hired. And the only way out is to speak under oath to investigators. Foundation President Rabbi B. Elka Abramson announced the finding in an email to the Wexner community, saying that the review concluded that Epstein was never involved in determining Foundation policy or any role whatsoever in screening, identifying, or selecting participants for any of our leadership initiatives, and served purely as a functionary executing documents and facilitating the required financial support from the Wexners. Well, he was a trustee of the foundation, wasn't he? That's a little detail that you're not going to be able to scrub. Why was Epstein involved at all? And you're going to have to give us more proof and evidence that his role was small, that it was basically non-existent is what you want us to believe. And we know that's not the truth. So just come clean. In the same month, Wexner announced he was stepping down as chairman of L Brands, the apparel empire he founded in the 1960s, and was selling a majority stake in Victoria's Secret to a private equity investor. There was no change announced, however, over the role he played in the foundation or the amount of discretion he was granted in its operations, which, the review stated, he funded almost entirely, 90%. So just think about that for a minute, folks. He's basically the sole benefactor of this foundation, and he is under assault by outside forces right now for his role in Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise. And this foundation, knowing that this is their golden cow, knowing that this is their cash ticket, well, they're definitely rallying around and circling the wagons, and they went all the way to the extreme of bringing in a quote-unquote independent investigator to help pitch their line. But the writing is on the wall, and this foundation is in serious trouble. A previous example of a mysterious and controversial move made by the foundation under Wexner's leadership was being scrutinized in Israel recently. a $2.3 million payment made to former Prime Minister Ehud Barak by the foundation in 2004 and 2006, which neither the foundation nor Barak has come forward to explain since it was revealed by a right-wing Israeli journalist in 2018. And we know that Barak is another one who is credibly accused of not only being an enabler, but of partaking in the abuse himself. So is it just a coincidence that all of these people are so close? That all of these people are moving money from this foundation to that foundation to this personal bank account? Folks, it is obvious what's going on here. And the money crimes, the financial crimes in this case are many, they are numerous, and they are large. These kind of financial crimes are the kind of crimes that send people to prison for 25, 30 years. So, I would really love to see RICO get started and all of these financial crimes receive serious scrutiny. During Barak's attempted political comeback in 2019, he was dogged by questions regarding the payment together with his relationship with Epstein. Barak was attacked and challenged repeatedly by the Netanyahu campaign regarding the payment, and photographs of Barak leaving Epstein's apartment were published in British newspaper The Daily Mail. And we've talked about that at length. We did a whole thing about Ehud Barak and his role and what he is accused of. And the fact of the matter is this. This guy, Ehud Barak, is another one that needs to be subpoenaed and questioned under oath. In response to an investigation by Israel's Channel 12, the foundation released a statement last weekend clarifying that the money was paid to Barak between 2004 and 2006 for 2 studies he was to have written for the foundation, one on leadership and the other on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Only one report was ultimately completed, but Barak kept the full amount of the grant. Yeah, of course, because it wasn't about some stupid report. Are you kidding me? Really? What does the Wexner Foundation need a report on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Give me an effing break. This was some sort of payment, some sort of hush money, some sort of, here you go type deal. Most certainly, in my opinion, this had nothing to do with 2 studies. Give me a break. Public and moral disappointment. Wexner's apparent unchecked discretion to use foundation funds in such a manner, along with the Epstein taint, has led Corwin Berman and other former Wexner fellows to believe that the foundation's structure needs to be retooled far beyond a revamp of the website. Yeah, it looks like they're using this foundation to launder money. That's what it looks like, folks, okay? The loudest public outcry for major structural change has come from Yehuda Kurtzer, president of the Shalom Hartman Institute and a Wexner alumnus who has participated in a number of Wexner Foundation events. Kurtzer has called on Wexner and his wife to surrender their control over the foundation's decisions, create a board with outsiders who have equal votes, and officially hand over autonomous leadership of its direction to its capable professional leaders. I think that is a fantastic idea, Mr. Kurtzer, and I think that if you were dealing with normal human beings and not power-hungry, disgusting people like these two, that might be the case. They might have enough dignity, enough public idealism to know that they have to step back. They have to take a step back for the growth of the organization, for the future of the organization. But they don't care because this whole foundation was set up as a money laundering scheme for them, in my opinion. It has nothing to do with giving people scholarships and helping people succeed in life. They don't really care about that, unless, of course, those people are then put into positions that might help Wexner and his buddies. For Kurtzer, the independent review on Epstein and the changes on the website fall far short of addressing the larger ethical issues at hand in a public and morally serious way. Kurtzer said in a phone interview he was disappointed that there hasn't been the reckoning that there should be. The real reckoning that I wanted to see happening was a redesign of the foundation's governance. The foundation, he added, still lacks transparency in regard to who its trustees and decision makers are. in the foundation's 990 tax form in 2018, Wexner was one of only 2 people listed as trustees for the foundation. The other was Dennis Hirsch, the Wexner family's current financial advisor. Boy, he really likes to have these financial advisors as trustees and people involved in his day-to-day money-making decisions, huh? Pretty odd for a guy with the money that this dude has. Corwin Berman says there may indeed be a quiet, deliberative, and slow change afoot in the Wexner Foundation. The problem is, aside from a tweaked website, nobody has heard about it. Yeah, well, that's how they like to roll, right? They're going to try and do this, keep it quiet, and they'll try and not embarrass Wexner as much as possible until the public outcry becomes so loud that they're forced to cut ties all around and not have anything to do with him or his wife. What is distressing to me is the lack of communication about the changes that are happening, she said. It's one thing to communicate, as they have, that this is going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of thought and work. But those words start to feel like just words if we aren't also learning what kind of actions the leaders of the foundation and the philanthropists themselves have decided are important. And again, it's just lip service, right? That's what this gal is saying here. It's just lip service. We haven't seen any real tangible action being taken. And it's just about image. That's what they're looking to do. Refurbish their image. Nonprofit conundrum. Over the past year, painful questions about Epstein have been discussed privately and extensively in email chains and WhatsApp groups populated by Wexner program alumni like Kurtzer and Corwin Berman. Concerns later intensified regarding business practices in Wexner's company, L Brands, when the New York Times published an expose of sexual harassment within the Wexner empire, focusing on the Victoria's Secret lingerie chain. The Times story told of Wexner's inaction when complaints of harassment were taken to him and accused Wexner himself of belittling women. Look, we know that this is the case. We read those articles when they came out. We discussed it, and we read the accounts of the women themselves who felt like they were being abused. And nothing occurred then. Now, with everything happening with Ghislaine Maxwell, the pressure is ramped up to an 11. And people like Wexner are going to start feeling the heat, not only from outside forces, but from their own foundations, their own groups that they have set up. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants this stink on them. Rabbi Jill Jacobs, executive director of Trua, the Rabbinic Call for Human Rights, and another former Wexner fellow, noted that even years before the Epstein, Barack, or sexual harassment controversies hit the headlines, there were already discussions among Wexner's fellows regarding suspicions that Wexner's clothing brands may have been connected to unethical labor practices. Yeah, of course they were. All of these big companies, Nike, Victoria's Secret, insert any brand name here, are basically using slave labor. Look what's going on over in China with the Uyghurs. It is absolutely deplorable what is happening to those people over there. But yet, nobody does anything about it. You want to talk about a real human rights catastrophe? Just take a look at what's going on in China right now. It's an ongoing conundrum in the nonprofit world, and especially in social justice work. Do you take money that's almost always tainted in some way or the other in order to do work in the world to undo the conditions that allowed philanthropists to earn very large amounts of money on the backs of other people in the first place? Jacobs said in a telephone interview. Ultimately, it's not just about Wexner, she added. There's a bigger issue about money in the Jewish community. All philanthropy, really. It's there in almost any major foundation with any dominant and powerful major donor. Most people who have acquired very large amounts of money have done it with some ethical lapses. Yeah, that's just saying it in short. Ethical lapses, straight up criminal activity. How many of these people have been involved in money laundering? Washing some money. How many of these people have used shell companies or tax havens? I'm sure most of them. The most important step in addressing this contradiction, Corwin Berman said, is acknowledging that it exists, which is where she takes issue with the Foundation's current approach if it is, as she believes, making gradual reforms in a quiet and secretive way behind closed doors. In a certain way, it replicates some of the problems that have gotten us to where we are. Not by working through some of these changes in a more open, self-reflective, and transparent way about power and how power operates, she said. It seems to me if there's really going to be a change in culture, that the changes should not be happening slowly in a submerged way, but be named and identified, she added. Well, that's how it would work if they meant it. If they really meant to make changes in the organization, if they really meant to do things the right way moving forward, that's what would occur. But that's not what they want to do. Again, it's all about the image. How can we refurbish our image without really making any changes? Beyond the website, and even beyond the idea of creating a wider decision-making board with better distribution of power, she noted, is the need for open soul-searching in the face of the story of Epstein's abuses and his history with the Foundation. The whole philosophy of honing this kind of powerful leadership and creating an elite cadre of Wexner Fellows and Wexner leaders, which is a philosophy I did feel part of, really needs to be challenged and questioned. Even if we don't have clear or credible evidence that Wexner had specific connections to any of the criminal acts. There needs to be an opening of a very different conversation about multiple layers of abuse that have not just been tolerated, but actually sanctioned by systems that empower those people who have access to a lot of resources and lets them operate above scrutiny or beyond rebuke. Well, I'll be damned. That is exactly what I'm saying. So, let's get it started. Let's get a full-on view of what's going on in the Wexner Foundation. Let's see what they're really up to. Let's get some transparency. Even if change and better practices are put in place in the Wexner Foundation, she concluded, more needs to be said out loud. If better organizational practices are the sole result, she said, lost in the shuffle will be the incredible human toll of what happened because Epstein had access to Wexner's money and benefited from a culture that protected and allowed really powerful men to do whatever they want. Look, if we're hearing this now from fellows of Wexner's own foundation, how long before the floodgates open? How long before journalists in the legacy media are actually reporting on this stuff? Hopefully not much longer, because if anybody deserved to have the spotlight aimed directly at them and the curtains pulled back on their activities, it most assuredly is Les Wexner. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, everybody, I'll be back later on, and we'll do it all over again.